Hello and welcome again to the Christian Arts and Entertainment Podcast. I'm Kevin Newsom here with my wife, Deanna, and we thank you for joining us, whether on your regular podcast app or on YouTube. Thank you so much for being here. Today we're going to talk a little bit about theme parks, Disney World, Universal Studios, and parks like that, and some of the COVID-19 precautions they have taken there to help families have an experience, a positive experience at theme parks still, and be able to have their vacations. Deanna is a certified Disney nut. In other words, she has the paperwork that says that she is allowed to help people plan their Disney vacations. She is a Disney travel planner, and in way of commercial, if you are wanting to have a Disney trip, she specializes in that. And if you want to contact her, I'll make sure to have that information in the information bar so she can help you plan your magical Disney trip. So, Deanna, tell everybody about the COVID-19 things that the theme parks are doing.
Well, I think they're working really hard. One, because they want to be open and they want people to be able to come, and they want people most of all to feel safe while they are there. What I've noticed and what I've read, they are definitely encouraging social distancing. They're requiring mask wearing. I think it kind of varies from park to park how particular they are about the mask that people wear, but they are requiring that you wear masks.
For example, Disney World has very strict requirements about the mask.
Right. 2-layer fabric, must loop over the ears, must cover nose to chin, all those things.
But we saw when we were at Universal here this past week, for a couple of days, we saw people not doing that. We saw people with the gator masks and other style of masks. So Universal's not quite strict.
Right. So it just depends. There's hand sanitizer stations everywhere. From our experience, they're sanitizing before rides, social distancing, marking the queues for the rides, and just really working really hard to make it a safe and clean, super clean environment for everybody to be in. In the resort hotel, they were doing touchless housekeeping. They would deliver things to your door and leave them there for you if you needed extra towels and things like that. And it was, they're working really hard, and there are lots of other protocols and things in place that I'm just not going to go. It's a lot of the boring stuff, but they're working really, really hard to make it safe for everybody to be there.
We've never used so much hand sanitizer in our lives than the 2 days that we were at Universal Studios. They were squirting hand sanitizer into your hands before every ride, right before you got onto the ride.
One of the agents that I got some agents to comment about their experiences in the parks recently in a group that I'm in, and one of the agents, it was like communion. It was your communion sanitizer before you get on the ride. You just cup your hands and they put the sanitizer in your hands, and I thought that was kind of funny.
So we're talking about Disney World, Orlando, Universal Orlando, SeaWorld, I guess.
Legoland.
We're talking about Orlando. What's going on in California?
Nothing. Nothing.
Why?
Well, they're still shut down. I mean, they aren't allowed to open.
Right. So, if you want to plan your theme park vacation, your only choice right now is Orlando. Well,
I mean, there are others. You've got Dollywood in Tennessee, and we saw that Six Flags was doing some things, but I don't know. I haven't researched what they are doing. I'm sure it would be very similar.
So, we spent 2 days at Universal Studios, just a quick family trip. Normally, we would take a really big Disney World trip every couple of years. This was a year we were supposed to do our Disney World trip and couldn't do it, and we decided we didn't want to waste our Disney year on doing coronavirus Disney. So we decided to spend a couple of days at Universal instead. It's a very different experience. First of all, when you look at the COVID protocols that are stated for Universal and Disney, how did you think what we experienced matched what they said they would be doing?
Well, I think they followed through. I really do. I mean, there's only so much control you have over other people. They were doing really well enforcing. I know in Universal they had people, different team members around with their signs, reminding people to put their masks up. You're only allowed to eat and drink when you're sitting down, which is something they've really had to start enforcing.
And they
more
had
recently.
what they called it, the wellness zone or something.
It was the rest areas and it was very spaced out where you could go and they had picnic tables and things set very distanced, so you could sit with your family in this area, even if you weren't eating something, and just take your mask off and take a mask break and breathe for a little bit.
But as far as just general crowd goes, it's difficult for them to enforce that.
It is, and I mean, you'd see walking around through the park, people with their masks down around their chins or not on at all, and it was not as common as I kind of expected it to be, but it was still there. Of course, when we went, it was really, I would say it was kind of low crowd. I mean, I know that they're only running at 35% capacity, I think was the last I read. So I know that the crowds are way lower than what anybody is used to. But, you're always going to have those rebels, like the people who refused to stay the 6 feet away from you in the ride queues. I'm like, it's not that difficult. It's laid out right there for you. Please move.
Right, and in the tight spaces, like in Hogsmeade, the Hogsmeade area where it's kind of tight, there was so much of a crowd because it was a brand new ride.
Right.
Brand new ride, and everybody's trying to get on that ride. There was no social distancing going on there.
No, and I don't think that was anything. Universal could put lines and things there, but because it's so narrow, it bottlenecks in that entrance to that area, and the ride entrance just happens to be right in that bottleneck, and so I don't think that there was much they could really do to enforce that with so many people trying to jump on and ride the new ride.
So how would you advise, knowing what you know from other travel agents, from the COVID protocols that both the ones that everybody knows and the boring ones behind the scenes that you can talk about, what kind of advice and tips would you give people who are planning a Disney or a Universal trip?
It's not going to be the same experience that you're used to if you've done it before. It's just not. Now, we chose Universal, and it had been 13 years since we've been to Universal, so it was quite different than the last time we'd been there. I mean, we are a diehard Disney family, and our kids, they noticed the difference. It's not going to be the same. Some of the things that, we noticed that we talked about was, one of the things I always enjoyed about our trips were, like the bus rides to and from the parks, just conversing with other travelers. That doesn't happen.
I didn't realize just how much of a social experience going to a theme park was.
Yeah,
until this trip.
Right, because you think, like, well, we're with our family and it's just us. But you do interact with other people, and in this age of social distancing and not wanting to make other people uncomfortable, I mean, you don't interact with other people very much. I mean, people were, my experience, they were polite,
but they didn't know how to start conversations because there's a wall up. They got their guards. Everybody's got their guards up because you're supposed to be social distancing. And
am I going to make you uncomfortable if I speak to you?
Right. Am I going to make you uncomfortable? We did have one lady, spent half the bus ride trying to make eye contact with us, and I saw her, and it took her like several minutes before she actually worked up the courage to say something. She just wanted to compliment us on our shirts. Our matching shirts, and a normal year there wouldn't have been any hesitation.
No. And
I think about all the conversations we've had, asking people where they've been, where they're from, and seeing somebody with a Mississippi State T-shirt on.
Right.
striking up a conversation with them while you're standing in line or something like that, asking where they're from, and these kinds of little small social moments aren't happening.
Right. Like encouraging that little kid in line who is their first time to ride the ride and they're a little terrified, and you just kind of like, oh, I've done this one a bunch of times. It's nothing. It's great. And you'll have a lot of fun.
Yeah, that little kid is standing 12 feet away from you.
Right.
And with a mask on, and nobody's making eye contact or anything like that.
Right.
It's just very
different. It was very different. I wouldn't say that it made it any less fun for us. We still enjoyed our vacation. It was actually more relaxing than some of our long Disney vacations because the parks aren't opening as early. They aren't closing as late. So, we got back to our room before dinner. And so, the parks were closed and we had nothing else to do. So we actually got to sit and relax, because when I die hard Disney, I open the park and I close the park, and we're there all day. And
she will make us stay in the park till midnight if it's open till midnight.
My family's like, can we please go back to the room now? I'm like, but that's me, and those are the things that excite me, and one of the things that really excites me. But it's not that. It's a completely different experience, and it can vary person to person. Like I put out there in the travel agent group that I'm in, the question of asking agents who have traveled since the parks reopened and the COVID protocols were put into place, how their experiences were. And it varied park to park and agent to agent, saying it was, they either had a wonderful experience, they noticed that the cast members or the team members were excited to see them. They saw, you don't have like character interactions in the park, but there's lots of character things going on. It's just all over the place, whether it was a positive experience or a negative experience. A lot of the complaints are there are not as many food options because not all of the restaurants in the parks are open. And I think in some cases, or at least in our case, in one meal, this being the only restaurant that was open in an area, the food was just awful.
Left a lot to be desired.
It was cold, and it was the worst experience I've ever had. You're not expecting much from a theme park cheeseburger, but you at least expect it to be warm and not taste like cardboard. It was just terrible. But other people say that they've had wonderful experiences. The food's never been better, and it really varies from day to day where you are.
Now, these people who are saying they've had wonderful experiences, are they talking about a specific park, or you got a variety of people saying both Universal and Disney have had good experiences?
Right. It was about even. I had agents say that they've been to Universal Orlando recently, and their experience was wonderful. The team members were excited. The people were pleasant. Most people were following the rules, and they were polite. And then I've had some say that they didn't have such great an experience. With us in several areas, I would have to say that, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter was the place where the team members seemed to be more enthusiastic. But, pretty much around the rest of the park, I didn't get, of course, I'm Disney spoiled. I didn't get that kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
The overall experience.
Right.
Yeah.
The team members just didn't seem to be as excited to be there. And I know, bless them, that they've been through so much, a period of not working, and all of these new protocols and things have got to be super stressful. It just, it was a different experience. But then there are agents who've said that the team members and cast members they have semi-interacted with have been amazing, and they're so excited for people to be visiting the parks and doing things with them.
Well, and it could be a simple difference. We talked about that there's a fundamental difference in Universal Studios versus Disney in the approach to how they do theme park vacations. So if these travel agents that are having good versus bad experiences, and maybe you got your Disney people who are having bad experiences at Universal. I don't think it's that. I think it's just it really
depends on the day. You know, you never know when somebody's had a bad day or somebody has had a rude guest. I mean, you never know what has come before you, which is why I always say, you know, we teach our kids, we're like, give grace first, because we don't know what they've been through. So, you know, I think it just really depends.
Well, and
to be fair, the interaction is not the same with the team members and the cast members that it has always been before, because everybody is, you know, keep your distance. Here, my sole job is to pump sanitizer in your hand.
oh gosh, and it's so funny because they're trying to pump the sanitizer in your hand without touching you. So they're just they're crooking their hands a little bit, trying to get the right angle so that there's no physical contact at all. It's just it's really, really strange. They don't even want the nozzle to touch you. They're just trying to get it just perfect so that it drops in your hand without hitting the ground, so they don't waste any.
Right. Well, I mean,
they got to sanitize everybody.
I can't imagine how much sanitizer they're going to. I mean, I feel like I still have it in my bloodstream, and I'm good for the rest of the year. I mean, that's how much sanitizer.
I saw in one ride they had a station with drawers.
Really?
Just drawers of it just laid out, and they could just go and pull out a new bottle anytime they needed it.
Right.
So one of the things I noticed was, 2020 has been hard on everybody.
Oh, yeah.
And it seems like people are going to these theme parks because they want a break from 2020. They want their family vacation. They want to go unwind and have some fun.
Step out of reality.
But the truth is, you get there and coronavirus is there too. It's everywhere. And there's constant reminders that you can't escape. It is here at your happy place, whether you want it to be or not. And everybody has to deal with it.
Yep.
And I just saw just this sort of heaviness on so many people that they got to their vacation and they still can't get away from it.
Right. And it's just the reality of now. You can't get away from it. It was, that was one of the things as we were prepping for our trip. It's like, do we have enough comfortable masks to wear so that we can change throughout the day? And I mean, it's just like, wow, this is something I really have to think about now, And, it's something you have to think about when you're in your planning, whether you're going to go the packs of paper masks or pack some comfortable cloth ones and make sure everybody has enough, because good grief, you can't wear one for a whole day.
No, I didn't want to wear one for half a day.
No.
It's just there's just something missing when you have to completely isolate yourself from everybody else in the theme park, and you're missing something.
Yeah.
It's not the same experience. It's not. It's lacking. There's no social interaction. You can't smile at people.
Unless you're really good at making your eye smiles not look creepy.
You have to yell
a
lot at people because they can't hear you through your mask in a crowded shop. It's just different.
It is different, but I wouldn't say that it's less fun. It's not going to be the relaxing getaway maybe you were thinking of, but I think it was still a much needed vacation.
Yeah.
Even if it was just a couple of days in a place that our kids had never been before.
Yeah, we've always done Disney. We've done Disney 5-6 times over the years since they were little. Every 2 years, just about. So switching gears, diehard Disney family, Disney travel planner. You eat, breathe everything Disney. Your workstation over here off camera is covered in Disney stuff. I'm sure there are Disney pictures on the wall back here somewhere.
No,
maybe there's a couple. There's a couple of Disney pictures on the shelf. Universal and Disney. Just real quick, differences, similarities. If you're always going to one and you're thinking about going to the other, What are people going to expect?
Oh gosh. That's really hard.
Oh.
I mean, submersive experience, is that a good word? Just the way the parks are laid out. Universal is very compact. And I remembered that from the last time we had gone because, it's kind of landlocked. It's really compact. Everything is really, really close together. And so you don't have they don't really have the ability to completely separate one area from the other. So you don't get that complete immersion. I think the Wizarding World of Harry Potter was the closest area in the park that you got to what Disney is like because it was much more submersive.
Right. Especially the Diagon Alley section.
Right. It was you couldn't really see anything else, but everywhere else in the park you can see all of the rest of the park and the things that are going on. Whereas, the way Disney is laid out, if I'm in Magic Kingdom and I'm in Fantasyland, I'm in Fantasyland. And I'm not distracted by what's over in Adventureland or
Right.
or anything like that. It's
and along those same lines, the Disney philosophy, they want to submerge you so much in a ride that they go above and beyond or in an area to block out the rest of the world. They do it in creative ways. To fence out or mask out other parts of the park, other rides. They mask out the rest of the world. Universal doesn't do that.
No, and I don't think that they have this.
That's not part of their philosophy, though.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I have not done as much research in Universal, which is one of the reasons we went, because I want to learn more. But they don't have the space. They just don't have the space to do it the same way. I think they do a good job. It was still, the rides are a little more intense. That's one thing is with our kids. This is not a Disney ride. Universal rides are going to be a little bit more intense. So
and that's one of the biggest differences is that Universal is more for the thrill seekers that want to ride intense rides and less for the people who want the submersive experience. So if you want to just completely block out the world and live in a fantasy land and not worried about whether the rides are intense or not, that's Disney. You're going to get an experience, a submersive experience with Disney. Universal, you're going to get more thrill rides.
Right.
And roller coasters. You actually got real roller coasters at Universal.
Which is why it's taken us so long to take our kids there, because they've always been kind of like, no. And you can't get the kids to ride Splash Mountain. They're not going to want to ride, Hulk.
Right.
But now they found that they enjoy those other things more. The last few times we've gone to Disney, guess what? They really enjoyed the roller coasters at Universal. So we're like, yay, it was time.
All right, well, let's wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast, on your podcast app or on YouTube, as we've talked about theme parks, Universal Studios, and Disney World. If you have any questions about those sorts of things, Deanna will be happy to answer your questions.
Or being a good agent, talk to your travel agent. They'll answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, but if you don't have one, call them.
But don't be the biggest takeaway is, I understand that there are people who, have, they may be immunocompromised or have family that are, and they have to be super careful right now. But if you are in one of those people that aren't, and you've just been putting off your vacation because of, fear or, not knowing how things were working, just go. Have fun. I would say book the trip. Go. Have fun. It's not going to be the same. Now, I would say if it's your first time to ever go, I might wait. And let some of the things.
Yeah, you might have a bad experience.
Well, it won't be what you're.
It won't be the best experience.
Right. It won't be what you're expecting, maybe. But still, just go.
Don't be afraid, because they're going to bathe you in hand sanitizer.
And if you're like me, you've got 2 bottles in your bag you're
Yes.
using all the time anyway too.
Yes.
So, but don't be afraid to go. If you can, and you know what's best for your families, but I believe they're doing really, really well and as far as what other agents have said that have been to Disney recently. I haven't been to Disney recently, but we went to Universal, and they were doing really well. So
Good.
Don't be afraid.
All right. Well, that's it. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time. This has been the Christian Arts and Entertainment Podcast with author, musician, and worship pastor Kevin Newsom. Thank you for joining us today, for your comments, and for subscribing. See you next time.